Welcome to Efiwe, excellence without stress.
So good day everyone and welcome to another Efiwe JAMB biology tutorial excellence without stress. So today we'll be talking about respiration. So what exactly is respiration? So respiration is a very important life process that all organisms, all living things need to do in order to survive. So respiration we have two parts. The one we take in gases, oxygen, and take out carbon dioxide. And also we have internal respiration, that's cellular respiration, respiration that occurs inside. If not for that respiration, the energy which we have, we won't be getting it. So let's dive into it and see more about respiration. So what's respiration? So the very time we breathe, we take in life-supporting oxygen from surrounding air, like I said. Oxygen is extremely, like very important for life. We can survive for weeks without food, for days without water, but only a few minutes without oxygen. It ranges from person to person, but some people, once you deprive them of oxygen for a very short time, they are gone. So oxygen is very important. So in our body, the oxygen is used to what? So we used to release energy that is stored in chemical fuel we consume our food. So I said it before that the energy, the food we eat, it contains large amount of energy. But that energy is not something that as soon as we eat it, we don't just get that energy. So how do we get that energy in the food? So first of all, the food is broken down into smaller pieces. Then we use oxygen to break it down and bring out the energy. So that's why oxygen is very important. So this energy is vital for powering our life processes. So broadly, the sequences of processes that leads to what? The release of that energy in living things is what we call respiration. That's why it's a series of processes. We have external respiration, that means bringing in that oxygen into the cell. Then we have internal respiration, how that oxygen, breaks down the molecule to release energy. So all the process, we just call it respiration, but respiration is divided into different classes. So we're going to see everything. So in most multicellular organisms, so multicellular animals are animals that have many cells like ourselves. So it involves the intake and absorption of oxygen from the surrounding environment. So the transport of that oxygen to the individual cells in the body and using that energy, that oxygen, sorry, to release what energy in the form of what? ATP, which is what adenosine triphosphate from energy rich substances via the Krebs cycle. I've said it before. It involves what? Taking in that oxygen, transporting that oxygen to where it is needed, and using that oxygen to break down food substances into ATP. So through what? A process we call Krebs cycle. So the metabolic process that uses that oxygen to release energy as ATP in living cells is known as cellular respiration. I said that before. Cellular respiration occurs inside the cell. So the intake and absorption of oxygen is automatically accompanied by the what? Elimination of what? CO2, which is what? Carbon dioxide and water into the surroundings. So you take in that oxygen and you take out what? CO2 and water. So thus the respiratory system are known as what? Gaseous exchange system, because they are exchanging gases in the environment. They are exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide. So on the right side, you will see a simplified picture depicting, cellular respiration. So I'm going to continue. So so types of respiratory system. So different. Definitely, all organisms will not have the same type of respiratory system. Humans, are humans, and small organisms like amoeba, we have no. It has to be different. So well-developed respiratory system are found in higher animals. So like ourselves, we're higher animals. So we have well-developed respiratory system. While simple organisms like monerans, like protists, fungi, and some multicellular organisms in plants, they do not have any particular respiratory system. So the gases just usually simply diffuses in and diffuses out. So it can work for some organisms, but some organisms that are complex, like ourselves, it won't work. So you need a very complex respiratory system. While organisms that are very small, diffusion is enough for them. So the following are important gaseous exchange or respiratory surfaces that is found, sorry, structures that is found in protists animals. So the body surface can serve as a respiratory surface for some animals. So some of them is gills can work. So trachea and lungs. So those are respiratory structures. So what's the difference between respiration and breathing? Are they the same? Are they different? What's the difference? Let's see them. So when you say gaseous exchange, so gaseous exchange from definition of respiration is clear. There is exchange, it's an exchange organ. So breathing is always wrongly described as external respiration. So let's differentiate it now. So breathing is the exchange of gases between the environment and the breathing organs of living organisms, like lungs. So breathing is the exchange of gases between them. So breathing is a mechanical process. You can see it, it's visible. The muscular action, when you breathe in, muscles act, and it enables an animal to quicken its rate of gas exchange. The muscles can help us See, I'm using my muscles to quicken the rate of my gases exchange. So plants exchange gases too, but they do not breathe. They don't have muscles. It's not a physical process like this. So gases exchange is just barely exchanging the gases. But breathing is a physical process. You can see it is visible, it's mechanical. So plants, just know that plants also exchange gases. They exchange CO2 and oxygen, but they do not breathe. Animals breathe. So that's the difference between breathing and respiration. So what's the general purpose of a respiratory surface? So what properties does a surface have to have for you to now say, yes, this surface is a respiratory surface? So one, it has to have a large surface area to volume ratio. So the body surface is adequate in very small organisms. So infoldings of a respiratory part of the body also provide a large surface area, e.g. lungs. So the lungs, we enter our lungs, we see many infoldings. It provides a large surface where gases and this thing can be exchanged. So even gills in large, fish. So most surfaces are moist. So moist surfaces are that's meant to be most of it are moist so that diversion may occur in solution. So in order for those gases to move, that surface has to be moist. So that most times inside your nose and inside your respiratory system are usually moist. So that that oxygen, that gas can diffuse, it can dissolve in that water, so that in that solution, so that it can easily be moved around. So it must be thin. If it's too big, it will take time to diffuse around. But if it's thin, gases can easily move around. So a respiratory surface has to be thin. So diffusion is only efficient over short distances because the rate of diffusion is inversely proportional to the distance. So the distance is increasing, diffusion is going down. So because the concentration of the two sides, so between the concentration of the two sides of the respiratory surface, that means the surface, if the diffusion wants to occur effectively, the place it has to cross has to be thin. If it's thin, it can easily cross. But if it's wide, to take time to cross, and diffusion will not be very effective. So transport. So this must occur in order to maintain the diffusion gradient in large metazoans, and a vascular system is required. Let's say when we take oxygen through our nose and it gets to our lung, we know that all the cells in our body need that oxygen. So what about the cells in your toe? How will they get that oxygen? So we need a very efficient transport. So for that oxygen to move from where it is gotten to where to be used, which is the cells all over your body. And what helps in doing that is transport. And what is the best transport system in the body? Is blood. So blood helps transport the oxygen around. So they should also have a good supply of oxygen, definitely. That's why it's a respiratory surface. So they are highly vascularized. That means they must be richly supplied with blood vessels. There must be arteries, there must be veins, there must be lymphatic, and things like that. So this is a picture that depicts the properties of respiratory surface in animals. So I will urge you to spend time with it and understand what must a surface have for it to be able to be a respiratory surface in animals. So this is a table. Take note, this is a very common JAMB question. I had to add this table because it will be asked. You will be asked. You have to be familiar with organism, the organ it uses to exchange gases, and the functional environment. Is it terrestrial? Is it aquatic? You have to understand it. So you have to spend time with this. You have to. It's not something you have to. You have to know what reptiles use, what birds use. You have to. So please spend time with this and make sure you understand it. So body surfaces. So unicellular organism. That means uni means one. Cellular. That means it's just one cell. Not like we now. We have trillions. I mean trillions of cells. But cellular we just have one cell. Example is the amoeba. So the gastronexia can just take place through the plasma membrane. So if you see the organism, it's very thin. So this is the whole organism. So oxygen can just enter and CO2 can easily leave like easily. But that will not work for larger organisms because too big. We have trillions of cells. So the size of such organism is small so that to ensure sufficient oxygen reach all parts of the organism so that it can maintain its life process. But for multicellular organism, that means organism with many cells. Sorry about that. I don't know what's happening today. So multicellular organisms can have larger body surfaces for gaseous exchange than the cellular organism. So however, these organisms they cannot grow beyond the certain point. Some multicellular organisms they may have many cells, but they can still use diffusion through their body surface. But these organisms they cannot grow too big. If they are too big, the cells will be too far apart. So diffusion should take time for the oxygen to go from one place to another. So even if multicellular organisms use their body surface for gaseous exchange, that organism will not grow too big. Once it grows to a certain size limit, it does not grow more than that. So we'll see what we mean by that. So what gaseous exchange in simple animals. So we have sponges and coelentrates. So in these simple animals, all their body cells are in direct contact with the surrounding aquatic medium. So all the cells are already in direct contact with the aquatic medium, so they can easily just exchange, gases with the medium. You can't happen in something like human beings. We have organs that are inside, our stomach is inside, we have things inside. Those things are not in direct contact with the external environment, so it's not work. But all these organisms can work for them. So even flatworm, from the name flatworm, so it's extremely flattened and it's elongated, so it increases the surface area, so diffusion can easily walk across the body's surface. So annelids also. So gases can occur by diffusion over the most body surface, even amphibians. So they live on both land and water. So they have lungs which are not properly developed like ours, not properly developed. So, but it meets the oxygen demand. But they have other processes that will also help them, since the lung is not as developed as other organisms. So oxygen obtained through moist skin is called cutaneous respiration. So once you hear cutaneous means skin. So take note of that. It's actually a very common question. So the aquatic respiratory structure, that's the gill. So most aquatic organisms like fish, they use what we call the gill. So now we're going to see the gill. So gills, they are special organs that use what? Absorbing oxygen from aquatic environment. Because that's where the fish lives. It lives in an aquatic environment. So the gill helps it in taking in the oxygen and using the oxygen. So they can be simple or it can be complex depending on how the organism is. So simple form of sun-enclosed gill, they are seen in aquatic snails and crustaceans, like crabs. So in aquatic snails, gills are enclosed in a chamber. All the it is open to the outside, enclosed in the chamber and open to the outside. So gills in bony fish. So the most complex gill and gill chambers, they are found in what? Bony fish. So there are two gill chambers. We call them opercular cavities in a bony fish. So they are situated on each side of the head, immediately beyond the mouth. So immediately beyond the mouth, you can see the gills on each side of the head. So each chamber is covered by a thin thickness. It has to be thin. It's thick. It cannot work. So it has to be covered by what? A thin bony plate. And the gill cover, which is also called operculum, that has a free edge. So water from the outside can enter the body through the mouth. So you just have to open the mouth and water enters. So it flows through the pharynx and flows through the gill chambers and deposits out of the body under the operculum. So that's how the water goes through. So 4 gills are situated at the entrance of each gill chambers. So each gill is a red comb-like structure. You can see so gill filament uricals. The middle of a bony gill arc that bears 2 rows of finger-like what? Gill filament on the outer side and gill uricals on the inner side. So if you see the picture, you can see it. Gill filament and gill rakers. It looks like a rake. I don't know if you know that instrument, rake. That's how they call it, gill rakers. So now we're talking about terrestrial respiratory system. What does that mean? We talk about gills, which is what animals in aquatic. So now animals like ourselves that live on land. So land animals, they're exposed to the atmosphere. They have dry body coverings. So these animals, they evolved respiratory structure to bring dry air in contact with moist surface inside their body. That's why I told you before. Respiratory surface is what? Moist in the body. So unlike gills, which are outgrowth of the body surface turned inward to form this respiratory structure. You can see that our lung is now outside. Our lung is inside. So two structure are the what? The trachea and the lung. So you can see the picture on the right hand side. So beside arthropods, the terrestrial vertebrate are other successful group of land animals. These animals use what? Lungs as what? Gaseous exchange. So lungs are closely linked to the circulatory system so that oxygen can easily be transported over long distance. I told you, you have to be linked to the circulatory system so that oxygen can be transported, long distance. The oxygen is coming in contact with the lung, but cells in your hands, cells in your eyes, cells in your leg, they need that oxygen. That's how you have to have an efficient transport, system, and the blood is very helpful for that. So since our cell, even if the cell is located far, we can get oxygen there in time. So the organism can grow how they want. You can see that we are actually bigger than most animals. Animals are actually very small. Look at the snail, but look at the way we grow. So this enables the vertebrate to attain the last side that is seen in many mammals. You can see mammals, you can see whales, they are mammals, you see the way they are big. You can see elephants. So that's because of this. They can grow into the size that they want because they have efficient what? Transport system. So now the mammalian respiratory system. So the most complex respiratory system is found in mammals. Definitely the most complicated things are usually found in mammals. So the main gaseous exchange occurs through what? A pair of lungs, one on the right, one on the left. That's enclosed in what? In your thorax. The thorax is this upper part, your chest. And it's connected to the outside by a series of branch air tubes and what? Pathways. So in human beings, air enters the body either through what? Through the mouth. You can take in air through the mouth, or you can take it through the nose. So those are external openings that lead into the nasal cavity. So both the nasal cavity and the mouth, they open into the pharynx. So the pharynx, you can see it on the picture. The pharynx is a short passageway. It opens into two directions. Either it goes to the esophagus in the back and also to the trachea in the front. But air usually goes through the trachea in the front. We also call it windpipe. So the back is for food. So the larynx contains the vocal cord. So that's the reason why we can talk. So the vocal cord can be tightened by muscles so that they make sound where air passes over them. That's the reason why we can talk. It's because of our vocal cords. So why the trachea? Trachea, the air passes into the windpipe, which is also called trachea. And the trachea goes down the neck, into the thorax. So in the thorax, it's split into two, into the two lungs. So the thorax is the upper part of your body from the neck up to the bottom of your ribs and diaphragm. So diaphragm is what separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. Take note of that. It's a very common JAMB question. So the bronchi. In the thorax, the trachea divides into two bronchi. So the bronchi are called the right and the left bronchi. Very easy. So the singular is called bronchus, just one. So one bronchus goes to each lung and then branches into smaller tubes, what we call bronchioles. So they're even smaller than bronchi. So the alveoli, at the end of each bronchus, there are many tiny sacs or alveoli. This is where gas exchange usually take place. So tiny blood vessels that are what we call capillaries, they are very tiny blood vessels. They are closely wrapped around the outside of the alveoli. So oxygen diffuses across the walls of the alveoli into the blood. Oxygen will just leave the wall of the alveoli and go into the blood, and the blood will transport them, to long distance. So carbon dioxide diffuses the other way. So oxygen is leaving the alveoli into the blood. Carbon dioxide is leaving the blood into the alveoli. So the walls of the alveoli, they have several features which make them what? Very efficient respiratory surface. We talked about this before. They are very thin. They're only just one cell thick, can easily pass through. So what's the structure of the thorax? The thorax is separated from the abdomen by the diaphragm. I said it before. Thorax separated from the diaphragm, from the abdomen by diaphragm. It's supported by the rib cage, and it consists of the thoracic cavity. This is the thoracic cavity. So inside the thoracic cavity lies the heart in the middle, and the associated blood vessels. Then the lungs on two sides. So each lung is surrounded by an inner and outer pleural membrane. So there's always two membranes. The one that adheres to the lungs itself, we call it visceral pleura. Right, the one that covers the lung from outside, we call it parietal pleura. But just know that there are two pleural membranes, and between the two membranes, we have a cavity that is filled with what? Pleural fluid. And that pleural fluid helps the lung to slide. So when you breathe, the stress is increasing and reducing. So it helps to slide around each other, so that reduces the friction. It also occurs in the heart. We talked about that pericardial cavity. That's pericardial fluid and things like that. What are the respiratory mechanisms? So in many multicellular organisms, air or water from the external environment is continuously circulated over the gastrointestinal surface. This process in which it happens is what we call ventilation. So mechanism which bring about ventilation differs according to how complex the organism lives, or the medium in which if the organism living in water, it will be different from the organism that lives in the on land. So cellular respiration is sometimes referred to as tissue or internal respiration because it takes place inside the cell. So while ventilation and gaseous exchange are referred to as external respiration. I said this when I was starting, that we have external respiration and internal respiration. So gaseous exchange in fishes. So in fishes, the gaseous exchange occurs in what? Gill filament. Take note of this. Occurs in what? Gill filament. So to suck in water, inspiration from outside of the outside the environment, the fish will just open its mouth, I said it before, and decrease the pressure inside by expanding the mouth cavity. And water flows from higher pressure, or fluid, not just water, air flows from what? Higher pressure to lower pressure. So when you reduce the pressure inside the body, the fluid will just flow from higher pressure outside into inside. So at the same time, the outside water pressure pushes the gill cover against the body wall. And now it wants to take out the water, which we call expiration, from the body. The fish will close its mouth, open the esophagus, and raise the floor of the mouth. So this will increase the pressure inside, and water will flow from what? High pressure to low pressure. So the water flows out of the body by pushing the what? The gill covers open. So this is a diagram that represents everything we've been talking about. So spend time with it and get familiar with it. Now, mammals. So the ventilation of the lungs. In mammals, the structure of the thorax is designed to what? To bring about ventilation of the lungs. So the rib cage, the intercostal muscles, and the diaphragm, they all work together to draw air inside and out of the lung. So what are the respiration movements? In air-breathing vertebrates like ourselves, gaseous exchange occurs in the lungs. We said that before. So those lungs they are suspended in the thoracic cavity, which are separated from the abdominal cavity by what? By diaphragm, which is a what? A muscular sheath. So the lungs are surrounded and protected by the what? By the rib cage, and is enclosed within a double membrane sac, which is called what? Pleura. Said that before, which is both airtight and what? And waterproof. So the ribs and diaphragm move during breathing. So first, it enlarges so that air is sucked in. So that enlarge, so that air enters. Then it decreases so that air is what? Squeezed out. So there are two sets of muscles which helps during breathing. So one set is what? Between the rib. So between the rib, we call it intercostal muscles. So the other set is diaphragm. Diaphragm is very, very important. It's a very, very important muscle of respiration. So diaphragm is a large set of muscle and elastic tissue that stretches, across the body underneath the lung and the heart. So this picture, underneath the lung and the heart, we have what we call the diaphragm. So breathing in is also called inspiration or inhalation. Please take note of that. It's a very common JAMB question. So during inspiration, the thoracic cavity is enlarged that causes air to enter the lungs from the external environment. This is done in the following way. For inspiration, external intercostal muscle contract. Take note. For inspiration, external intercostal muscle is not internal. It's internal external. I don't know if you get that. For inspiration, we're talking about inspiration now. External intercostal muscle will contract and the internal will relax. So that will move the ribs diagonally upwards and outward. You get that? So this will cause the sternum to move outward also. So that means the dome-shaped diaphragm towards will remain fixed. It will contract, it will flatten out, push the ribs. That will increase the surface, it will increase the cavity, so air will enter. So these are the processes that occur during inhalation. So we also have cellular respiration. These are respiration that occurs inside the cell. We're talking about how the body exchanges air or gases with the external environment. That's external respiration. So now cellular respiration, internal respiration. So it's a process by which what cells extract energy, from nutrients and convert them into usually ATP. We use that ATP to do cellular work to provide energy for our body. So it involves the breakdown of what? Glucose, which is C6H12O6, and other organic molecules in the presence of oxygen and releasing what? Energy. So we have aerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration occurs in the presence of oxygen. Once you see aerobic, that means yes, oxygen must be there. So it is a more efficient way of producing energy. It consists of three main stages. We have glycolysis, we have Krebs cycle, which is also called citric acid cycle, then we have electron transport chain. So this is the equation for aerobic reaction. Please take note, it's a very common JAMB question. You can ask you questions on it. So organisms that undergo aerobic respiration, humans, most plants and animals actually undergo. So and many bacteria too undergo aerobic respiration. So we have anaerobic respiration, which is the opposite of aerobic respiration. So it occurs in the absence of oxygen and is less efficient than aerobic respiration because it actually produces less amount of ATP. I think aerobic respiration produces about 38 ATP, and this one produces about 2 ATP. So equation for anaerobic respiration, we have fermentation in animal cells. So that's the equation. We also have in plant cell. So we have alcoholic fermentation. Is it alcoholic fermentation they call it? So that's the third equation of reaction. So these are the three equations of reaction you have to be familiar with. You just have to be familiar with. It comes out, they ask questions on it. So example of organisms that perform anaerobic respiration, yeast, very common, yeast. So under anaerobic condition, yeast can undergo alcoholic fermentation. So that third equation is what? Alcoholic fermentation. So producing what? Ethanol and what? CO2, which is carbon dioxide. So some bacteria will also perform anaerobic respiration. So these are the key differences between aerobic and anaerobic. For aerobic, oxygen is needed. When anaerobic, it does not rely on oxygen. That's why we call it aerobic and anaerobic. So aerobic is more efficient. It produces a higher yield of ATP per molecule of glucose. I said that before. One produces 38, one produces 2. And the byproduct is different. So anaerobic respiration produces what? Ethanol, lactic acid. You can see the equation. You can see ethanol. So it also produces lactic acid sometimes. So those are the cellular respiration. Now, respiration does not occur, or respiration does not occur only in animals. It occurs in plants too. So plants, they usually have specific exchange structure like complex animal, because they don't usually need it. So instead, gas will easily enter and leave the body through what? Microscopic opening that we call what? Stomata. on the green plant. So there are also tiny opening what we call lenticel, or it can move through what the root hair in young plant. So opening and closing of the stomata. Stomata opens and closes for gases to move in or out. So the opening and closing of stomata controls the flow of gases in the leaves. So the control is necessary for what? To prevent excessive loss of water. Because if it closes, water cannot leave. But if it opens, water can leave. So excessive loss of water and vapor from the body via what? Transpiration. So usually stomata opens during the day and closes at night. So each stomata or stomata pore is flanked by bean-shaped guard cells. So guard cells are the one that help in guarding the cell. They help in opening or closing the cell. So the only epidermal cell with what? Chloroplast. So the walls of the guard cell is what? Next to the pore. They are thicker than those that are in the epidermal cells. So the thicker walls stretch as much as the thinner walls. So this is stomata is open on the left and it's shrunken or closed on the right. So what about lenticel? So they are air pores that is found in the back of what? Stems and roots. So lenticel are formed when what? Stems and roots undergo secondary thickening. So as soon as they undergo secondary thickening, there are some spaces that are left behind. We call them lenticel. So usually lenticel develop below a what? Stoma, where the cork cambium, instead of forming compact row of cork cells, it produces what? Irregular shaped cork cells that are loosely arranged with lots of what? Intercellular spaces. So we also have root hair that provide a large surface area for the absorption of what? Water, mineral salt, and also oxygen. So oxygen that is present in the soil air, it dissolves in the soil moisture and it diffuses into the what? Root hair. So from here, it diffuses into other root cells. So the CO2 that's carbon dioxide that's produced by the root cell, it diffuses, the other way into the soil. So that brings us to the end of today's lecture. So thank you for sticking with me to the end. We'll see you again in our next lecture. And I will urge you to please download the apps where we can get familiar with all the courses. So good luck as you read. See you in the next class.